Hey everybody, this is Nick Hoover here from We Climb, You Climb. This is part two of our interview series. Last time Mark interviewed me, and I'm getting the opportunity now to interview Mark. So I'm excited about that. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Thank you.
So let's just get into it. Some of the questions are going to be similar as last time, and some will be a little bit different. But I like how you started the interview off with a fun fact. I think I did three fun facts, so I didn't stick to the script. But can you share with the listeners, the climbers, a fun fact about yourself?
Fun fact. I have a lot of fun facts about myself, but I'll share two of them. One of them, I think I've been to 46 states. I've traveled to 46 states, driven across country for pleasure and work, and really kind of cool. What's funny is I had seen 46 states before I had ever traveled outside of the U.S., and now I've been to 9 different countries outside of the U.S. So that's a fun fact. Fun fact number two, military. I served 8 years active duty, and I'm a reservist now. But what a lot of people don't know is I actually went to Army boot camp and I went to Navy boot camp. So I always tell people I'm double disciplined. So kind of a cool fact.
Yeah, I remember that time pretty well, and I will be completely honest and vulnerable here. I was not thrilled about you saying you were going to the Army, especially at that time. You know, it was like you graduated from boot camp and we're going right overseas, and I was thinking, oh man, I wasn't thrilled about that. And then I remember you called and said, hey, I failed my hearing test, right? And then and then there was an issue and an issue and an issue. And then, it was just such a long time, right? In fact, if I remember correctly, the people you went to boot camp with actually got finished before you were released, right? To come home. So
Yeah,
it
that's
was a,
correct.
that's an interesting, that's an interesting story for sure. Going through boot camp in two different branches. Pretty cool.
Definitely, and that whole story there has a good, I guess, kind of a good meaning. Is really just to sum things up. I ended up having corrective surgery in my ear and being fit for service again. But um, I didn't give up. I knew what I wanted, and I knew how to get there. And even when I didn't, I asked for help to figure out how to get there, and I didn't let it beat me down, and I still stayed focused, and I still got my objective, because I really wanted it. So
Yeah, and on a personal side, you would not have gone to 9 countries if you were in the Army. Like, I just don't think that would have been the case. You went to different countries because you were in the Navy, right? And so I just think that's pretty cool. So
yeah,
okay, so how about your favorite quote? A favorite quote of yours?
favorite quote, something that I think of all the time. It's from Sun Tzu, ancient Chinese general who wrote The Art of War. It goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and in 1,000 battles you'll prevail. And what that means is, to me, is that it's important to understand yourself and those who you're working with, whether or not they're your enemies, right? In combat, but it's also and not to call your people or your coworkers your enemy, but you really have to understand them, right? As a leader and as a person, you have to understand yourself and understand them, and so that you can work together. And a good example is, maybe I'm weak in one area and they're strong in another area. So let's go ahead and utilize them for what they're good at. And this way you can focus on what you're good at. And so I've always applied that to so many aspects of my life. Yeah, so my favorite quote right there.
Awesome. That's great. So, all right. So let's get into some elements of leadership. You asked me this question. I thought it was great, so I stole it as well. What do you think are the three most important elements of leadership?
I'm gonna have to say communication, just like you said. Communication's on top for me. It's extremely important. I mean, communication in general. I always say this in life, right? Because there's so many things as a leader that applies to our lives as you know, in personal communication with others and in your family life. But communication is so important, and it's how we communicate with people is how we become more effective. And that's really what we want to do in life is we want to be effective people, human beings. And the way to do that is one of them is by communicating well enough to where people understand you. So number two is trust. Again, being an effective human being is establishing trust. And you know, one of the ways that trust is important is as a this example as a leader is you know, coming a time where you have to tell your team to do something, and it may not seem for the good of them, but they have to be willing to execute and trust what you say without necessarily, you know, holding back or questioning things all the time. And by all means, I don't want a team that is just obedient and always does what I say. I want them to challenge me, and I want them to come up with new ideas. But there are times where you have to execute things quickly, and the only way to get those done is to have complete trust. And it goes the other way. I want to have trust in my people, so when I delegate work out and I walk away, I want to know it's going to get done. I want to know I'm going to come back and they're going to do it better than me, you know. So, and the third element, let's see, mindset. It's really there's so many things that as a leader, our mindset is extremely important, and especially probably, you know, positivity, being resilient, and being kind of having the mindset to persevere when things become tough. And it's really David Goggins says this all the time. It's there's so many things that happen, and what we're doing is every time we challenge ourselves, we're callousing our mind so that when the difficult things happen, we're ready for them. And so mindset is so important, and it's important to continuously kind of build a strong mindset, so to prepare yourself for difficult times as a leader and as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you know, and you listed a couple different things there about mindset. It's not just about, I said in my interview, you know, rainbows and unicorns or whatever I said. Like that's not what it is at all. And but you even added another layer. It's not just positive mindset. It's not just a growth mindset. It's grit. It's perseverance. It's resilience. Those are all part of a mindset. Um, that I think are really important. I also think it's interesting that we each asked each other that question, and two of those things we both agreed on. So that's pretty cool. So all right, so
Yeah.
you asked me how we could improve or how others could improve their communication skills. So I'm going to ask you about mindset. That's the other one we agreed on. So what are some strategies or some things that people can do, or maybe that you do, to improve on mindset?
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on one particular area, strengthening your mindset, right? So we talked a lot about before in previous you know, writings and things like that about positive mindset, but what I'm going to talk about is kind of what David Goggins says is callousing your mind. It's strengthening your mind because we're all going to be faced with difficult situations, and the stronger our mindset is the better we'll respond to those things. So how do we strengthen that? One thing is something that I love is physical fitness. Physical fitness, believe it or not, is going to make you a better leader. It's going to make you a better person because when you're exercising, you are pushing yourself, you're challenging yourself to go beyond, maybe even if it's just 1% beyond what you think you could do. And in reality, you can do that, and it's all in your mind whether or not you can do that. And so when you do that, your mind then becomes stronger, and you realize what you're capable of. And so outside of fitness, it's constantly challenging yourself and finding that you can overcome those challenges, and then you actually build your mindset to be stronger, so that the next time there's a challenge that comes along, you know that, oh, I've done something equally as challenging as this. I'm pretty sure I could do that. And so, really, just building a strong mindset is really, to me, it's very, very important for success.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we both love David Goggins. If you
Yeah,
don't
oh
know who
yeah.
David Goggins is, please check out his work, please. Um, all right, great. So I want to get into something a little more personal. Well, you mentioned it before that you part of your fun fact, you're in the military currently, and you've been in the military for a while. In fact, just to show everybody, I've got my shirt on here from the USS. I don't know if you can see that, USS Enterprise. You were on that ship for quite some time, and I got the opportunity. Actually, really cool story. I know this is going to take longer than we thought, but in the last two trips, I won't get into the whole Tiger Cruise thing of how that works, but Dad was able to get on the ship with you in the second to last trip. And then rare that me and Mom were able to get on that last trip, which I think was really awesome. And it was probably the first time I remember us having like a real discussion about leadership. I'm sure we discussed it prior to that, but that was the first time I really remember having like an in-depth conversation, and the difference between the military world and my world as a public educator. And that was really interesting. So you're still balancing that right now, right? You're a military leader, you're a civilian leader. So what are some of the similarities that you see between those two? Being a non-military person, what I would see as two very different worlds.
Yeah, so a common mistake people make at assuming how leaders work in the military is that, of course, there's a rank structure, and it's obvious that somebody above you in rank you has more authority than you, positional authority. So the assumption is what I say goes, right? I'm higher ranked than you, so I tell you to do that, and that works. And of course, that does exist in some circumstances, but that does exist in the civilian world too. And what a lot of people don't realize is that they exist in both worlds. But what the bottom line is in both the military and civilian world is they're people. They're people underneath that uniform. They're people underneath that shirt and tie. And the when at the end of the day, it comes down to the fundamental principles of leadership. Trust, communication, taking care of your people, having a good mindset. There's so many things that, regardless of military and regardless of military branch and civilian job, at the end of the day, you're dealing with people, and they're human beings who have feelings, and there's a certain way that you can build good leadership practices where people follow you because they want to and not because they have to. The whole positional authority, yeah, it may seem like it exists more on the military side, but the bottom line, a good leader on the military side practices the same principles as a good leader on the civilian side, and building the foundation or the fundamental elements of leadership.
Wow, that was awesome. Yeah, that's I mean, I guess that kind of goes for really anything, right? I mean, whether I've been in one district or another, or one role or another, you're still dealing with people, and that's the most important commodity that we have, so that's great. Okay, so is there any other wisdom that you want to share with our listeners and followers?
Wisdom. Before I talked about mindset and I talked about callousing your mind, and I had said, physical fitness, right? Well, not everybody's a physical fitness type of person, right? So I think some wisdom is just in general is to challenge yourself. Find ways to challenge yourself. If it's not in the gym or not on the street, read more. Challenge yourself by reading books outside of areas that you're comfortable in. Get outside of your comfort zone. Continue to challenge yourself because you will build a stronger mindset. By just simply challenging yourself, and I encourage everybody to do that. And I hope that after people watch this, that they say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to read a book that just read a book, or read a book that I normally wouldn't read.
Mm.
And yeah, so challenge yourself. That's my wisdom: is always challenge yourself to build a stronger mind.
I think you're familiar. We've talked about this, about the Kaizen method, right? Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I've read a couple of books, and I know you shared with me the book about Toyota, which I haven't read. It's probably the fourth or fifth more books to get to, but I read a couple of books about the Kaizen method of just trying to improve 1% every day. And by doing that, if you just pick up the book and read one page, most likely you're going to read probably more like 10. But if you just tell yourself, I'm just going to read one page, you can do it. If you just get up and say, just walk the quick circle around your block, that might take 8 minutes. Most likely by the time you get out there, you go, I'll do a couple of other blocks. And I think that kind of goes along with what you're saying there. So that's awesome.
absolutely.
Okay, anything else to share?
No, well, yes. I hope that by doing these interviews, people understand us a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I really hope that all of you who are watching and listening right now, that you reach out to us. We are available, especially right now during this time. Feel free to reach out to us, ask us questions about leadership, personal life, whatever it is. Reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Give us some feedback, some comments. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And again, I think that's all I got.
Yeah,
Anything
I
for
thank
you?
you. Thanks for taking the time. I agree, Mark. I hope that people, continue to reach out, and we'd also love to take questions, as well as if anybody's interested in being interviewed as well. We would love to have you. So just let us know. Find us on our website or Twitter or any of the other places Mark just said, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
All right. Bye.
See ya.